Hey guys, welcome back. Or if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. My name is Mickey. I'm a eBay reseller, antique dealer. I sell on eBay mainly. I'm trying to get into a few other platforms, but I've also been dealing in antiques for 15 years at least. And I've been selling on eBay for most of that time, casually, only recently pretty seriously, but I've been doing it for quite a long time. And I know one of the hardest things about eBay is probably pricing certain items, well, all items, but then sometimes you're throwing curveballs or just a rare item you're just not sure how to price. We're going to talk a little bit about basic pricing, and one that I just had that was a little challenging to price, and I priced it aggressively, and it worked out for me in this case. But um, when you're starting out in eBay, it's usually probably best to start with something you know about or collect. Like for me, it's toys and military. So if you collect whatever, Hummels, probably a bad example there, but or Pops, whatever, start with something you know and you gives yourself an idea of what the pricing is already. You're familiar with the market already, and then you can venture out and start, experimenting with other items, and you get the feel for it. It's definitely something you get the feel for with time. Like I've been to hundreds of flea markets, yard sales, antique shows, and you're going to see a wide array of prices at those too, but it also helps you learn along the way that prices are always going to vary, but on eBay, you got so much competition with most items. Sometimes you're going to get those rare items, but for the most part, you're competing you are competing with millions of other resellers at this point, and certain items, there could be hundreds of them listed. Obviously, you need to pay attention to sale through rates, but also, that's also, which is a great practice, but you also want to be competitive with your pricing. So it's good to start with, looking at sold listings, obviously, uh, which is something you should do anyway, because that's how you figure out a sale through rate. And then Terapeak is great for the harder to find items, but certain things you also need to take into consideration: variants or special releases, stuff like that. Like with toys, a good example with toys is you there's variants of different toys that was made in this factory in this country versus this factory in that country. Some collectors are going to want every one of those variants, and condition, another thing to always take into consideration, something a lot of people don't realize or think about, or even sometimes if it's in the package, if it's out of the package. I've seen people pricing at flea markets on eBay. They'll look at a sold listing of a toy that's in the package, and they price their loose played with condition. The condition's rough, it's out of the package, but they price it as the price of a mitten packaged toy. Something you don't want to do, obviously. You're not going to sell it. Nobody's going to want a loose toy for the price of a mitten packaged toy. Like prime example here, I bought these Hot Wheels at a flea market. I bought a lot of Hot Wheels, like 120 Hot Wheels at a flea market a few weeks ago, and most of them were cut out of the cards were cut probably to keep, for storage or something, and some were on the card. Perfect example of condition versus mitten package right here. So technically, some may argue this is mint in the package. To me, I price these as mint loose. So I would look at sold comps of this particular car loose, but in really good condition, because that's what this car, I mean, technically it's loose mint in my opinion. Sure, it's in a package, but the card's gone. A collector, a true mint on the card collector, isn't going to want this. It's worthless to them as far as collectability. But there's plenty of loose collectors out there that want one of everything. This one here is a Spider-Man. This is a really cool one, actually. But again, when you want to price competitively, something that tells me I probably priced this too high. I think it's priced at $45.97. And it hasn't sold yet. I've sold a lot of these Hot Wheels. I've been doing very well on them because I priced most of them right. And then once I was well into the black, I did a sale on them too. So that's something else to think about. But uh, like I said, I priced this one at 45, which is comps of really nice loose ones, but it hasn't sold yet. So that should probably tell me I probably priced it a little too high. So I am probably going to go through and maybe lower a few of these Hot Wheels later. But with a mint on package one, it's a no-brainer. But you also got to take into consideration the condition of the card and the bubble. Is the bubble coming off? Is there cracks in it? Is it yellowing? Is the card got creases, and is it folded or anything like that? Then in which case, again, you're probably still going to have to price it as a mint loose. And military stuff is another great example of really hard to price items. Because a lot of military stuff, especially when you get into like World War II groupings or medals, which you can't sell most medals on eBay, but helmets, painted helmets, there's a lot of, like with toys, variants, and military, it's a whole other ball field. Patches, you got greenback patches, bowling on made patches, theater made patches, embroidered versus so many things to take into consideration, and that's something to think about when you're looking up your item, not just with toys or military. It should apply to most items. Is it original? Is it reproduction? That's one thing you really got to look out with anything these days, especially military, even some toys. But especially military, there's a lot of reproductions out there from people not necessarily trying to dupe people, but for reenactors. But to the novice collector or the new reseller, they may not be able to tell the difference between a reproduction and an original toy, military, what have you. So do your research on the item. That's a key, And like this is the item that kind of I wasn't quite sure how to price just recently, and I had to go to Terapeak, which I use occasionally now. I've been utilizing it a little more, but there wasn't any in recent sold listings, so I went to Terapeak on this, and I had to go back 3 years to get a good average sale price. The average was like $90. I think 6 had sold in like the last 3 years because there wasn't any listed, there wasn't any sold in just regular sold listings. So I had to do a little deeper dive on this one. And I also found that there's variants of these glasses as well. I wasn't able to find which one's more rare because this glass, regardless, seems pretty rare. But apparently there's also a version of these glasses with red crosses instead of the white cross, because the red cross makes more sense anyway when you think about it. So maybe it's a misprint. I don't know. But I did discover that as well. So there's variants of these cups as also. So another good example of variants. But it's obviously it's MASH. There's the Colonel Potter and Hot Lips, Margaret Houlihan. And the solds were anywhere from 75 to 192 on these. And the last one I think sold like about a year ago or so. And I think that was the 192 one. And what I'm guessing is the lower ones, this is like going off my instincts, I guess, that I've built. The lower ones, I'm guessing, were people that couldn't find decent sold listings and listed them at 75 because that's what the other slightly more common variants are going for, which they're going for about $75. So that's still pretty damn good, though. Absolutely. Which these came out of my collection. I've had these for years, and I just recently decided to sell them. And when I went to start just taking pictures of them, because I figured they were worth around $25 a piece, because I'm sure that's less than what I paid, probably around $10-15 a piece when I bought them originally, like 10 years ago. But I was kind of blown away by what they were selling for now, because I got 2 other ones that are selling fairly regularly for 75, But another example of maybe I priced the other two a little too high. I priced them at 75. They haven't sold. That's the going rate. Maybe I should have been a little more competitive. Maybe dropped it, $5 plus shipping or something like that. Charge $70. But with this one, like I said, it was in between 75 to 192. So I decided to be a little aggressive on this one and just kind of shoot for the moon. I put in $149.97 plus shipping, $6.99 shipping, I believe, and it ended up selling within a day. Now that's I got lucky. Now I'm not saying that's the perfect way to do it. I got lucky, but it's rare, which also rare doesn't always mean it's worth money. In this case, I had proof from the computer telling me that they have sold in the past for anywhere from 75 to 192. So I kind of found a middle spot there to sell it, because one, maybe I could have put 200 on it, but how long would it have sat? Would it have sat for a week, a month, a year? I don't know. Would that have been too high? Probably. I think 192. It showed me in the Terra Peak that it was an auction, so there was competition there. There was two people that wanted it. Usually that's how a good auction works. So, but I didn't pay anywhere near that for it. I didn't pay anywhere near 150. Like I said, maybe around $10-15 originally, and so 150 to me, or anywhere between 75 to 150, I thought would have been good for me. And then I still have the other two to sell. They've been listed for several days. They haven't sold. So again, like I said, maybe price them a little high. I priced them retail, I guess is the best way to put it, what they're going for. But there's two listed of the one I have and none of the other. So I was kind of hoping one sale would lead to another, but so far not yet. But obviously there's other, websites you can utilize. A lot of people do use like WorthPoint or, websites like that, which personally I've never used. I just can't justify the cost personally, because generally I find if I don't know it, I might know somebody who does know what it goes for, or if it's not eBay sold listings, for example. That's another great thing, about building connections over the years of something. You got a guy. You should always have a guy for something, that may know. But that being said, you don't want to overutilize somebody like that, because it can be annoying to be that person that's always sending the military. Because I get it all the time, because in my area, I'm the military guy, quote unquote, the guy that knows and buys and sells military. So I'll get people from Facebook or just locals coming to me or sending me text, hey, what's this? What's it worth? And I'm sure you got your specialties too. I mean, I'm by no means an expert on military stuff, but I do know enough to get myself in trouble on it. Been collecting it since I was a little kid. So started with Civil War, just over years I've picked up a few things. So but that can get annoying to people, so don't do it too much to somebody unless they're cool with it. Some people are cool with it. I'm pretty chill about it. I'm usually gonna tell them what it's worth, and but I also want to try and buy it. But that's something when you have to take into consideration when you're going to use somebody like that. They're going to want to buy it, but that's why you're asking them what's it worth, because you want to get full retail. So it can be annoying sometimes, especially if you don't offer it to them, so, but that's one way to go about pricing something, but it's definitely not a surefire way at all. And same thing with using Facebook groups, which they're a great tool for many things, but don't rely on them to be your price guide. Because some people get pretty salty about it. I especially on Facebook, will do your research. They'll just comment like, took me 2 seconds to Google this here. So sometimes, it's good to use once in a while. And I'll do it once in a great while also. I'm sure everybody does, because sometimes you're going to get that piece you just don't know how to price, Uh, but at the same time, don't rely on the Facebook groups too much. Because, like I said, people can get kind of salty when people are constantly in a group. Hey, what's this? What's it worth? What's this? What's it worth? Because a lot of us in the antique business, it's taken years to build the knowledge, and some of these lessons we've literally had to pay for, where we bought fake items or paid to just paid too much for an item because you didn't do your research, or you just sometimes you want to take that gamble, which I understand. That's part of the fun and the rush that you get as a reseller, because let's face it, the best part is the buying, especially for me. This for the reselling is the tedious part, but the selling or the buying is the fun part. So I get that. But that's when you gotta buy right to sell right. You gotta remember that. That's something to really think about. It's something somebody, an old reseller, told me when I first started doing flea markets years ago. If you buy it right, you can sell it right, and that's stuck in my head because we're in a reseller world anyway. Most people out there buying, especially when you're at a flea market, it's mostly resellers looking to buy. So if you can buy it right, you can sell it right. And that goes back to pricing competitively. So you want to be able to undercut all those other eBayers, and make a profit. That's obviously incredibly important too. You got to make it. That's why if you buy it right, you can sell it right. The cup is a decent example. Like I said, I paid maybe $10, $15 for it 10 years ago. And so I know I couldn't lose money on it. So there was no way, even if I got $75, I would have been happy if it sat for a while. I would have taken 75 probably eventually. So you just don't want to be too greedy with your pricing, I guess is what I'm saying. Especially if you got a great deal on it. You can afford to, yes, you can put full blown retail on it, but that if there's other ones and they're all priced the same, if you paid $1 for it, it's selling for $200. You put it for 175. Yours is probably going to sell much faster than the ones priced at 200, and you're making a great profit. Sure, you're not getting all the money that's on the table, but you're giving somebody a good deal, and in turn, that'll probably lead to them coming back to you for another item in the future. So always price competitively, buy right to sell it right. May I have been a little greedy with pricing this item? I don't think so, but judging from the sold listings, and there was just none listed. There hadn't been any listed for a long time, so I took collectability into consideration. So, but like I said, I got lucky. It worked for me this time. I price aggressively a lot, and it doesn't always pay off. It just doesn't. Another good example, recently I bought some modern military surplus Kevlar helmets at a yard sale for $5 each. That's a no-brainer. I don't know, just if you ever come across Kevlar helmets for $5, buy them. So I bought them and didn't even know. I know some that generally they go from anywhere from 1 to 600 or more. And both of the ones I got were north of 200, selling regularly. One was selling full retail for around 400, between 4 and 500, and the other was about 2 to 300. So I paid $5. I wanted a quick flip. I priced them, I'd say, pretty competitively, but high. And as I said, I bought it right to sell right. They both sold within 2 days of me listing them. I had one for 150, one for 185, and I had listed them, I think, about $100 under what most of the other ones were selling for. I could have put, the full retail price, but again, how long would they have sat? Would they have been in my garage for 6 months or a year? I priced them competitively. They sold within 2 days. So don't be too greedy sometimes. So there we have it, guys. There's just a few examples. Try to make this video somewhat quick. I hope it was informative for somebody. Um, Remember to please click like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I'm always doing some flipping videos. I'm going to try to do a little more instructional videos. I'm not a teacher. I'm just a flipper, I guess. And but I appreciate you guys watching if you tuned in and if you made it this far, especially. So I'll catch you guys next time.